Okay, it's finally time to do my book review of Stephen King's The Stand. Unabridged version, 1,420 odd pages, I think it was. And this book was great, but it had some problems. I think you're gonna not really expect my main problem with the book, which is controversial. I have to admit that I think this book right here, this book is too damn short. It's not enough of this book right here. Actually, the ending was actually too long, but the beginning and the middle was fine, but the ending was bad. Now, I saw some people on Reddit talking about Stephen King, saying that he's not good at doing endings, and I'm thinking back to like reading the revival. That was kind of a weird, sudden, everything just got weird all of a sudden, kind of ending. And I remember looking at FPS Russia talking about It, how there's just all of a sudden these kids raped a chick in the end of It. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Like, Stephen King doesn't do very good endings, apparently. I didn't realize it till now. But if you look at my markings here, this book is actually divided into 3 sections, which are called Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. A lot of things will do that. It should have been a trilogy. And if you'll notice, this is Book 1, which is about 500 pages. And then Book 2 is about 600 pages, 700 pages. What is it? From, let's see, page... I didn't have a number, have them. 493 to 1136. Yeah, about 630 pages, I guess. Does that make sense? That's 1,000 something, and then you got another 400 pages for this. That doesn't seem right. Anyway, the last book is called The Stand. The first book is called Captain Trips. That's about the whole viral outbreak, which is interesting if you're living in times like right now. There's a global pandemic. It's probably rare for somebody to not have read this book when it first came out, and who have read the Dark Tower series first, because this is supposed to relate to the Dark Tower, and then reading this years later during an actual global pandemic, and knowing what happens in the Dark Tower, and then looking at Randall Flagg from a lens of someone who knows that he's the man who follows the gunslinger across the desert. That's really interesting. I'm trying to figure out, like, I was looking for stuff from the Dark Tower to see if there was anything I could glean from it, and I couldn't really find that much. I think there was one thing that he said that was, like, related to the Dark Tower. But he wrote this before the Dark Tower, which means he either had some of it planned out ahead of time or what, I don't know. I was just talking the other day about the weird order in which he wrote the Dark Tower, the years in between. And then also, okay, so this is just about the book today. I'm going to do a movie, or the TV series review pretty soon also, because it had some different stuff in it that I want to talk about. But they're actually doing a remake of the TV series, supposed to be coming out this year. I don't know if the coronavirus is going to delay it, and it won't make it out this year, but there's also a comic book, apparently. Kind of like Walking Dead looking comic book based on this book. So, that's interesting. So it starts out on a military base. The government's working on a crazy virus, and it gets loose. That's kind of like how The Mist started out too. The government was trying to punch a hole through another dimension, and all the creatures from the other dimension got loose. That's pretty cool. There's not a lot of movies I think start out that way. The government, like Stranger Things. Didn't Stranger Things fucking start out that way too? I think it did. So the military fucking up is just a common theme apparently, and he's really descriptive of how he describes how it like makes your throat fill up with snot, and then you kind of choke on your own snot. I think is a lot of it like sneezing, coughing, choking, and sputtering, which doesn't make a lot of sense with the movie, but I'll talk about that in the movie review. So the characters are really good. I didn't really care for Larry Underwood as much. Yeah, Larry Underwood. I always get his name confused because I thought it was Larry Anderson, but that's the guy from The Outsider. Then I get Larry Anderson confused with George Amberson from 11/22/63. Like, he uses a lot of similar names, so you have to kind of keep them all separate. Stuart Redmond is a really good character. One of my favorite characters was actually Harold Lauder. So they start out. This guy escapes the military base and he crashes into these gas pumps in Texas. That's where Stuart Redmond meets the virus, I guess, but he's immune to it. So all these people that are main characters, they all survived the Captain Trips part of the virus. One of them, it takes place in Maine, which is where all Stephen King's books take place, and that's Franny and Harold Lauder. And then they meet up with Larry Underwood. No? See, that's where I get confused. They met up with Stuart because Stuart, he was in the group of people that got the patient zero ran into him. So the government takes him to Vermont there's a big disease lab up there, and they try and do tests on him, figure out why he's immune to it. And they get all pissed because they're all dying and he's immune to it, and he has to kind of escape that. So then he runs into Franny and Harold that are just leaving their house where Franny's dad had just died and they had to bury him. So Harold's an interesting character I kind of relate to because he's kind of like he's an overweight virgin who kind of views women as like objects, or like he always had a crush on Franny, and then all of a sudden everybody dies in his town except him and her. So like he thinks he deserves her somehow, or it's like he's supposed to be with her because what are the odds that the two of them would be immune from the same town? So then this good-looking guy, Stu, comes along, so he's immediately jealous of us. And Stu has to like take him off to the side and say, "Look, I'm not trying to jump in on your action here with this chick." And he knows that he's going to have to do some learning on like how women are and how they're not property and all this kind of stuff. But then Stu ends up falling in love with her in the end anyway, so then that creates this whole problem where in the book, it kind of seems like Franny went along and dated Harold for a while and was fucking him. The movie totally got friend-zoned by Molly Ringwald, which I'll talk about that later. So, Harold ends up writing this ledger, or this book about who all these people he hates in the town and who he's going to kill. So everybody, this is the part that I don't really understand. It's a book about the plague and everybody's dying. But then out of nowhere, there's this guy, Randall Flagg, who's like a multi-dimensional teleporting wizard who can levitate. He can send out this eye and kind of see what's going on across the United States. And he can just kind of be walking down the road and he'll just vanish into a portal and appear somewhere else where something else is happening. He can turn into crows and wolves and rattlesnakes and weasels. He can kind of control animals, or he becomes them. He can do all this stuff, and he can do something like summoning lightning at the end, or like a laser beam kind of a thing. But they don't explain why or how. He's supposed to be like the spawn of Satan, sort of like, I don't know, he's not Satan, but he's one of Satan's minions or something. But then in the Dark Tower, he's from a whole other universe, sort of, so he's not really, can't be. So then on the other side of it, you got the good and the evil. You've got Mother Abigail. She's this old, like 108-year-old black woman. In the movie, she's 106. I don't know why you take off 2 years. But she's supposed to be like super frail, thin, and she makes her own biscuits. And everybody starts dreaming about her. Everybody in the United States that survives this thing, they start dreaming about Mother Abigail and her little house in a cornfield, playing a guitar in Nebraska in a cornfield, a little house. And a lot of them have a dream about Randall Flagg, the bad guy, the tall man, the walking dude, they call him. So the ones that are living on the West Coast just kind of go with the bad guy. The ones living on the East Coast kind of go with the Mother Abigail. I don't know why. Maybe some of them kind of crisscross, but most of them, it seems like wherever you live determines if you're good or evil. So everybody starts going towards Nebraska. Some of them get there before the other ones do. And then the ones that get there but first, Mother Abigail, she's like talking to God this whole time. Or she's praying to God and she's saying she's talking to God. Never explains if she's actually talking to God. Maybe she's just a crazy old black woman. But she says, we gotta go to Boulder, Colorado. I don't know why, but that's like on the border between the mountains that separate the east from the west. So they want to be close to the people that are trying to kill them. I don't know why. It don't make no sense. So the people that haven't gotten to Nebraska yet, they have to leave a note for them. So when they get to Nebraska, they know to go on to Boulder, Colorado, and then they end up starting a little town. And then they start worrying about trivial things like getting the power back on and trying to restart civilization. and dumb stuff like that. Like who's going to be on the committee that's going to make all the decisions about like clearing out all the dead people from the houses. Who's going to like pick up the trash or whatever, like that kind of stuff. And the people on the West, they're like, we got to kill these good people. We're just out trying to figure out how to fly a plane so we can like drop bombs on them. That's all they're worried about. And other people are like, we got to figure out the government. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why all these people, I guess they're just afraid of Randall Flagg, so they're all down for that. And then it's almost like when you play Fallout New Vegas and the Kaiser's Legion. They got people on crosses all the way down the road. So they're crucifying people on crosses. They're all like living in fear of Randall Flagg. Plus they know he's magic. And like his closest minions, he gives them this little black jet necklace with a red scar on it. Kind of like his eye so he can see what they're up to. One of them, his main number one guy was a guy who was like stuck in prison because he went on a killing spree with this guy named Poke. And he went around just mass murdering people and robbing stores and stuff. And the police caught him. And they put him in prison. And everybody died from the virus. So he was stuck in jail, like living off of rats. Trying to unscrew his bed with his fingers. His fingers were like worn to nubs. And Randall Flagg comes and offers him a way out. And that like he became like his number one man. Even though he didn't really agree with Randall Flagg, he kind of felt like he owed it to him. Just stay evil. Even though everybody else was like giving up on him at the end. But one of my other favorite characters, I mean, it's just said two of my other favorite characters. Besides Harold Lauder, who's a really good character. Really like, it's kind of like the yin yang. You got the good side with Harold Lauder and Nadine Cross. They're both kind of evil, but they're in the good side and they switch over. And on the evil side, most of those people are good people. When they get to Las Vegas, they find out most of the people are just like us. You know, they're good people and they're keeping the trains running on time and they're actually getting stuff done. And they're actually good people, but they're living in the evil side. So it's like the yin yang. A little bit of black and the white. A little bit of white and the black. But my other favorite character was Trash Can Man. He's this like crazy, almost homeless, just lunatic. That he's a pyromaniac. And he can smell weapons of mass destruction. Any kind of napalm, nukes, trigger, fuses, bombs, anything like that. He can sniff it out. And there's one scene where he's going to this town called Cherry that has like a big oil refinery. And he's like setting these fuses in it and bombs. And he blows it up and he almost burns his arm off. And I could see that so vividly in like an HD, like how it would look like in the movies. And in the actual TV show, it's pretty close to what I imagined. But it's like even better the way I imagined it. He's almost like, I imagine him wearing like trash bags as clothes or something almost. And he's like kind of running and jumping and like there's just a pop. Like it does when you shoot tannerite or something, and then crazy flames everywhere, and the whole town goes up. These big tankers full of oil and stuff gets exploded. So, Trash Can Man ends up in the non-abridged version. This is stuff he added in from the regular version. There's this guy named the Kid, who the Kid is like he's like gay, and he's like a short guy, and he drives a hot rod. And he has a couple of pistols, and he drinks Rebel Yell and Coors, and he's always getting Trash Can Man to suck his dick, or he's fucking him with his guns, or he's just like almost killing him. He's getting real super drunk. He's like, I might just blow your brains out right now. And he's like on the edge of shooting Trash Can Man all throughout this part that he's in it. And Trash Can Man's always just trying to get away from this guy named the Kid. And I really imagine the Kid, if he was in the movie, which he's not, as being, I don't think he is. He's not in part one that I've seen already. I imagine him being played by Patton Oswalt, because that really makes a lot of sense. Short guy, a little bit gay, a couple of pistols, just playing pranks on an old homeless guy. I mean, Patton Oswalt, that sounds like it'd be a great casting. So, that's one of my other favorite characters. And then you got Tom Cullen. Now, everybody that watched the TV show, I remember back when I was in high school, my friend Jonathan watched it. I never saw it back then. He kept telling me about this Tom Cullen character and saying how M-O-O-N, that spells whatever. It spells everything if you're a retarded guy. And in the book, he's like playing with toy cars. And he's riding a bicycle with the guy, Nick Andros. He's another good character. Nick Andros is a deaf mute. And he gets beat up by these weird guys that just They're really pissed off at people that are deaf mutes. Like, if you can't talk, they don't understand. How do you not talk? Why are you not talking to me? I'm not going to beat you up because I don't understand things. So they beat him near to death. And then the sheriff, who's married to the guy who beat him up's sister, has to arrest those guys. And then he gets sick and dies and leaves the deaf mute guy in charge of the jail of the guys that beat him up. So he's like a super nice guy, and he's trying to feed him, and they don't want to eat his food. He finally has to let him go, and then they try to kill him again. It's like this whole mess. But, like, why would you hate somebody being a deaf mute? It had nothing to do with you. Like, what the fuck are you even mad about? So Nick Andros, he has to write everything down to communicate. And the only guy he meets is a retarded guy who can't read. Perfect. So he ends up, like, having to, like, mime things out with him. Oh, there's another really great scene where they run into a tornado. And Nick Andros can't hear the tornado. He doesn't see it. But Tom Cullen sees it, so he has to, like, tell him to save his life. So Tom Cullen saves his life from this tornado, and they barely survive it. And then they run into this crazy woman who just wants to fuck him, the deaf mute guy. And then she almost kills him by shooting at him, so they have to, like, flee her. And she ends up going to the west side and being one of the evil people. So those are a lot of good characters in this movie, or this book. You've also got Glenn Bateman, who's like a philosopher. I can't even explain what he looks like. I think there's one character that always had like a feather in his hat. Maybe that was him. Maybe that's Ralph Brentner. See, Ralph Brentner, Ralph Anderson, that's the one from The Outsider. Ralph Brentner and Larry Underwood are kind of confusing to me. Ralph Brentner, I don't know anything about this guy, but he was like one of the main characters. I kept getting him confused with Larry Underwood or Glenn Bateman, because there's a lot of times where like the main characters will be going along, and maybe it's like Glenn and Ralph are going along, and then it'll switch over to like Franny and the other guys and Stu, and then it'll go back to Glenn and Ralph, and they got like 3 more people with them that they just picked up on the way to Nebraska or something, and they don't explain these other people like what their backstory was. I know there was one woman who had a baby that they lost the baby. Yeah, because they didn't have a doctor, or somebody had like what do you call it? Appendicitis. They died from appendicitis. So there's like a lot of weird stuff like that goes on. So let's see. You got the people on the east. Okay, the middle part of the book's called On the Border. That's where they're in Boulder, Colorado. They're trying to figure everything out, and they send some spies to the west. They send this one woman who's just a volunteer. They send this old guy they call the judge, because he's real smart. And they send the retarded guy, Tom Cullen, because they think, well, if he's psychic, this dark man, he's not going to detect a retarded guy. This has already been 18 minutes. See, this video's done twice as long as I expected it to be, because this book's so damn big. So they send the retarded guy, and he is the only one that survives. Dana, the volunteer, she ends up getting captured immediately, and he's trying to get information from her, and she immediately just like stabs her head through a window and stabs her neck down on a broken piece of glass and just stabs herself in the neck. And the judge dies in a shootout. Spoiler alert. So Tom Cullen ends up getting away from him because they hypnotize him. They had to hypnotize Tom Cullen because he's got this kind of thing he can do. He's real smart if you can hypnotize him, or if he kind of goes into a trance and he understands things, and he comes back to being a retarded guy all of a sudden. He gets away from Boulder. He's supposed to be getting all this information and spying, but he doesn't really know anything, really. He never really got the information. Even if he got back to Boulder, there's nothing really important he would have told him. This is where the ending starts to get real bad. It doesn't make any sense at all. So, like, the spies are useless. Mother Abigail decides, I'm going to go off into the woods, like in the Bible, and to see if I can survive. See if God will like feed me like a raven or something. And he doesn't. I mean, she survives, but just barely, and she gets back in time just to like tell these 4 guys, like, y'all got to get up and go to the west and make y'all stand in the clothes y'all wearing right now. And the clothes you stand up in, she says. And then she dies. So like the main good guy, the leader of all the main good guys, just dies. Like, okay, I guess God ain't really with her, and is she? So these 4 guys, they take off. They gotta walk. They've got cars. They could just drive to Las Vegas, but no, they gotta walk. And I'll tell you why. One guy falls down a cliff, breaks his leg in 2 places. He's fucked. He's like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna be laying here in this ditch. You guys gotta go on without me. So the end, I'm like, I don't want to go on without you. No, you gotta go on without me. I guess we've got to go on without you. And they head off west. And they notice their dog's gone. They had this big dog named Kojak. And they're like, Kojak went back and he kept that guy alive. He kept going off in the woods, bringing him sticks to make a fire, bringing him like rabbits to skin and eat. They kept Stu alive because Stu married Franny and they got her. She was already pregnant, but he was going to be the dad. They don't know if the baby's going to be fucked up or not because she had him with somebody that wasn't immune to the virus. But he wants to get back, see this baby's born. But he also, he has to go make his stand or whatever. But these other 3 guys, they're going to make their stand. They get to Las Vegas. He has these people on the road looking for him, and they pick him up and they take him to Randall Flagg because they wanted to get caught. And let's see, who was it? Ralph, Larry, and Glenn. I might be getting wrong about this, but okay, Nadine. I forgot to tell you about Nadine. Nadine, her and Harold set off a bomb during one of these committee meetings. Ended up killing 1 or 2 of them, but nobody really important. So then they went off to the west, and then Harold crashes his motorcycle, and then Nadine leaves her because she's supposed to be the wife of the Dark Man. She's not able to fuck anybody because she's supposed to be a virgin by the time she ends up with Randall Flagg. And Harold Lauder ends up realizing he just got screwed. He betrayed all of his friends for nothing, and Nadine leaves him, and he lays there and dies in a ditch like a piece of shit. So now you got these 3 good guys that are making their stand. They're walking to Las Vegas. They get picked up on purpose. Take him back to the guy. And I think he immediately kills Glenn Bateman. He has him shot or something. Or he shoots him with his laser beam finger. I don't know, something like that. So the other 2 guys, that's what it was. Larry and Ralph are left, I think. So they're getting up these cars with chains tied to them. They're going to draw and quarter them out in the middle of the street so everybody can see. Because crucifying them ain't good enough for these guys. And so what happens is Randall Flagg gets his lightning bolt finger out and he's about to kill these guys or have them drawn and quartered or whatever. And Trash Can Man, who got kicked out because he blew up a bunch of planes that they were getting ready to fly over and bomb them. He just got the urge. He's a fucking pyromaniac. He likes to burn shit. And he blew up a bunch of planes and he pissed the Dark Man off. She's like, he keeps saying my life for you. And he runs off into the Nevada desert, Area 51. And he finds a nuke. He's like, okay, this is how I'm going to get back into the good graces of the Dark Man. I'm going to bring him this fucking nuke. He shows up right as they're about to draw and quarter these guys with his nuke in a little wagon. So then Randall Flagg's getting ready to shoot these guys with his lightning or whatever. And then God takes that lightning and he turns it into a big hand of God. And he just stomps on that nuke, blows everybody up in Las Vegas. So, what was the point of any of that? I don't know. What was the point of Mother Abigail? She didn't do anything. If God could have done that, he could just kill Randall Flagg at any point. Or why do you have to kill all those good people that were in Las Vegas? They didn't even want to be with Randall Flagg. Why did he have to have Larry and Ralph walk all the way to Las Vegas to kill them along with everybody? I don't know. I mean, they kept having faith in God the whole time or whatever, or saying, I will fear no evil or something like that. But the reason they had to walk instead of driving their car, I guess, is so they would get there at the same time as Trash Can Man got there with that bomb. Just so that the Dark Man would be in the same place at the bomb as when they made their stand, which gave God his power to blow up that nuke or something. I don't know. Didn't make a lot of sense. So then, the last 200 pages of the book is it's not even interesting, really. It's just Stu Redman and that dog trying to get back to Boulder, Colorado. It's just about, it's cold and it's snowing and my leg hurts. He meets Tom Cullen. Tom Cullen gets back. He's on his way back to Boulder with this spy information, which is totally useless now because everything's already over with. He's already blew up Nevada. I mean, what's he going to tell them? Yeah, they blew up Nevada. No, guys, we can stop doing all this work then. We can all just spread to the 4 corners of the earth. One ends up going to South America, one wants to go to Hawaii, and everybody else is like, whatever, we'll just go wherever. So, this fucking dog and Tom Cullen Tom Cullen, like, he's like having dreams about Nick Andros, who already died. He's the one who died in the bomb. I said nobody important died. Nick's that. Nick Andros died in the bomb that Harold Lauder and Nadine sent. Man, there's a lot of stuff in this book. So Tom Cullen helps him. Nick Andros tells him in a dream, like, what's the right penicillin and ampicillin and stuff that's going to help him fix his leg or his infection, so he can get back to like a car that they have to hotwire, and then they have to jump start it down a hill, and it starts snowing, and then they get real close to Boulder, Colorado, but then big blizzard comes in, and they just barely make it in time. That's how it ends. It's just that they barely get to Boulder, Colorado, and then everything's kind of done. Wasn't really, see, that's just how I say I would take away the last 200 pages, and I would rewrite like another 500 pages. I would have an actual stand between good and evil. Like, have the forces of good fight the forces of evil, or have some kind of explanation of how they're how did he get all these magical powers? And what was Mother Abigail's power? Like, did she really talk to God? What's going on there? Didn't he explain any of that? I also want to know how it relates to the Dark Tower, but it was kind of retconned into the thing anyway. And there was also stuff that I guess I would change, but like Larry Underwood, when he's in Manhattan, he has to cross the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever to get to, is it Pennsylvania or whatever? And then like the Lincoln Tunnel. The Lincoln Tunnel is crammed full of cars and it's dark. And he meets this woman named Rita Blakemore. And she's like 60 or something. She's like real old and frail and really like not good at survival and really just pathetic. But he's just like, I think I'm gonna fuck her. And he starts fucking her. And then like he ends up realizing how pathetic and useless she is. And he's like, I don't really like this chick at all. And then they're camping in this tent, and one day they're getting drunk maybe or something, and he wakes up and she's like vomited on herself, and she's just like dead, covered in vomit. And he's like, it haunted him. So then he kind of found Nadine, I think. Yeah, Nadine and Joe. They changed that in the TV series too. Joe's not with Nadine. There's this little kid. The little kid had a lot of interesting stuff about him, but it never went anywhere. That should have went somewhere too. There's this kid named Joe, and it turned out his real name was Leo. But like, he was kind of a psychic. I think he had the Shining. Because a lot of Stephen King's characters will have the Shining, but he doesn't call it the Shining. So he kind of knew Nadine was bad from the start. Nadine has this big white streak in her hair. And by the time she becomes Randall Flagg's wife, it turned like totally white. So she's pretty evil. Her and Harold Lauder, once they get to fucking, they get to fucking. Because he's a virgin, and she's like, you know, no, they didn't get to fucking, but they did everything else. A lot of dick sucking, probably. A lot of finger blasting. But like she's saying, we can do anything you want to do. Any kind of nasty, sick fantasies you got. But I got to save that one thing for the Dark Man. And you know what he's all about. Because they're like having dreams about him and stuff. So everybody knows what the Dark Man was all about. That's kind of weird stuff like that. You know, Stephen King writes some weird stuff about sexuality and whatever. But he's really bad at writing endings. But all the good characters made up for it. It's a good book, I got to say. If you haven't read The Stand, I think you don't even need to anymore, because I just explained every damn bit of it in 30 seconds. 28 minutes, 30 seconds. Is there any other characters? There's a character named the Rat Man. I didn't really know that much about him. Julie Lawry, that was the one that kind of attacked Nick and Tom Cullen. Susan Stern, Lucy Swan, she's the ones that ends up marrying Larry Underwood once he doesn't want Nadine anymore. But there wasn't a whole lot to those characters. There's a lot of characters just kind of showed up. Oh, let me mention this part. This was kind of racist. When Captain Trips was going on, which, by the way, Captain Trips is not a good name for a disease. Diseases don't have military ranks. Why would you name it Captain anything? I don't know why you'd call it Trips either. You'd name it something, but Captain Trips? Why don't you call a disease that? So it ends up wiping everybody out, and there's a lot of skipping around the United States showing like how people are reacting to the virus. And one of them, I think, is in like Washington State or Seattle somewhere. There's like these black dudes, and I think they're wearing like, they're naked, or they're just wearing long cloths or something. Maybe they're on TV, and maybe they got their dicks out. Something really fucked up about it. And they got like one of those lottery machines, like the old timey ones where you spin a bunch of ping pong balls. Only that instead of ping pong balls, they got people's ID tags or ID cards. People that worked at this military base where everybody died, and they're just like, they got them all handcuffed in like a big circle, and all these big black dudes, they got like big executioner's axes, and they got guns and shit, and they're just like swinging their dicks around, and they're pulling this lottery thing, and they're like, okay, this guy, and then he steps forward and he's blasting him on TV, blow his brains out, or they cut his head off, and they smack him with their dicks. I don't know. That was crazy. That seemed really racist to me, like some, I don't know, Django kind of stuff or something like that. But yeah, there needs to be like an extra 500 pages and like fix the ending and really explain what actually was going on there.